Today on SportsTalk Philadelphia, Ryan Howard meets with the media in Clearwater and had some interesting things to say. We break down the big pieces remarks. Then, Zach Granitsky comes back on the show to talk about the Flyers and the impending NHL trade deadline. Finally, the Eagles made more moves this week as one veteran gets re-signed and another gets let go. Anthony Fleet comes on to look at the moves. After watching this show, you'll feel like you just signed a huge contract extension. STP starts right now. Let's go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I am your host, Tyler Harper. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We've got a great show for you today. Going to kick off with the Eagles this week because there was a lot of interesting offseason action that happened for the Birds. But first, we got to introduce my panel. First in the middle, the birthday boy himself, Mr. Jordan Green. Happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you.
And down on the end, we have Mr. Anthony Fleet. We're ready to talk some interesting Philadelphia Eagles offseason developments. It began early this week. It began on Monday when they wanted to shore up the secondary. They shored up Malcolm Jenkins, re-signing him to a 5-year extension. There you could see his stats from the previous season. Another very good year so far for Malcolm Jenkins in an Eagles uniform. 2 seasons with the Eagles, 2 pretty good ones too. Jordan, we'll start with you. Because of his recent success, he said in his press conference it was the 2 best seasons of his career. This obviously is a great move, right?
It's refreshing because if you remember not too long ago, Jarvis Byrd was the guy they were supposed to sign, and Malcolm Jenkins wasn't that great of a player. But I think it's a good move. They didn't overthink it. He hasn't shown any sign of declining, and he's pretty much the leader and the voice of that team almost at this point. He's the guy the media kind of looks to when they want to pulse of the team, and even the coaches, you get a sense, look to him. So it's a smart move by all accounts.
Fleet?
Yeah, I think it was a solid acquisition at the time, and his deal is 5 years, worth $35 million, and it has less of an impact on the salary cap hit, which is significant when you're trying to build up a team, especially under the salary cap. You mentioned the stats. We saw the graphic of his stats, but really, what was really impressive to me was the fact that he played every defensive snap in his 2 years with the Eagles so far. And that's really saying something considering that he's been with the Chip Kelly offense. And how many defensive plays that the defense had to play. So I think he's had a great career so far with the Eagles, and hopefully it could just continue for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, you mentioned we saw the stats. Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl. I mean, and again, we've mentioned on the show before, take the Pro Bowl for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But even so, he's kind of more of a morale guy and really, like Jordan said, a leader on this defense, if not this team. Like, he's really a guy who, like, he's kind of solemn, kind of quiet in the media, but when he's on the field, like, he's an energy guy, and he's someone these guys depend upon. And really, this defense hasn't had anybody like that since Brian Dawkins. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch, is it?
Macho Harris?
No, it's certainly not a stretch. Now, clearly, he doesn't have the popularity yet with the Eagles fan base that Brian Dawkins had, because Brian Dawkins, he's been so great for so long.
Oh, yeah.
But, Malcolm Jenkins, he could very well be on his way. If he can keep up his consistent production for the next few years, certainly the comparisons to Dawkins is completely fair.
Jordan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, he's just been very steady. He could do a little bit of everything, and I just like the confidence and the smarts he brings to this team. Whether it's the media, how he plays the game, he's just a very smart player, and you need a guy like that. It's not always about how fast you could run, how hard you can hit. A lot of the intangibles get overlooked a lot of times, and I think that's something maybe Chip Kelly forgot during his time with the team, and I think it's something you see the team really holding on to, guys with intangibles that are good for the morale of the team. I think it can only help the team.
And also, one more quick comment. He used basically the duct tape that kept everything together when the locker room was dividing with Chip Kelly and everything that was going on with that. And he's been displaying his leadership off the field throughout this free agency period when he's endorsing guys like Walter Thurman and Sam Bradford. So I think that's really what you need. You need that veteran leadership, especially when you have younger guys coming in.
Another thing he said, too, during his press conference was the fact that, I mean, this is just another one of kind of a plethora of re-signings that the Eagles have been doing over the past month or so in free agency. So how, we've harped on this before, but how key is it to really have like that core group of guys that you're bringing in and saying, okay, I want you to be the core of this team moving forward?
I think it's crucial because you think back to the Andy Reid era especially. A lot of those guys we were just very familiar with. They were there before Andy Reid. A lot of them were Ray Rhodes guys, Jeremiah Trotter, Brian Dawkins, McNabb was there for years. And then even some of the more role players. I think that's just very important to have the camaraderie because football's the ultimate team game last time I checked. So, that chemistry, if you're changing parts every year, guys are learning new schemes every year, getting reacclimated to the city, because it's not just a football thing. They're moving their families and everything. So I think just having a steady presence, in the facilities every year is huge.
Yeah. So now we move on to one guy being re-signed to, unfortunately, another veteran who was only here for a few years in Philadelphia, but loved pretty much by everyone, being let go, and that's D'Amico Ryans. And there you can see his career stats. A very lengthy career, but of course released this past week on Wednesday by the Philadelphia Eagles. Fleet, how bittersweet is it losing Mufasa, as he was dubbed by Chip Kelly? Because yeah, he was a guy who helped out on the field, but off the field, he was just such a likable guy, respectable, always had a smile on his face. So obviously, this is the necessary move. You're saving about $3.5 million in cap space, but still bittersweet, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And, you talk about his intangibles with his leadership, and we just talked about with Malcolm Jenkins how important that is. So I think being able to retain Malcolm Jenkins kind of makes it a little bit easier letting a guy like D'Amico Ryans go, because at the end of the day, it's all about production. And his last 2 seasons with the Eagles, he only played 22 games and had 95 tackles. And that's simply just not enough coming from a middle linebacker. You need that production. And I don't want this to sound mean-spirited, but I'm kind of happy that they let him go. And, you kind of do that reverse philosophy of what the Phillies did and what led them to be so bad is when they hung on to these older players who weren't as productive. I like seeing the Eagles do the opposite, because that's what a lot of good organizations do. You can't fall in love with these players. At the end of the day, it's about production, it's about business. You need to get wins on Sundays, and you need the best players as possible.
And not only that, but you mentioned the lack of production too from D'Amico Ryans, and also before he got injured and was out for the season, you also had a freight train in Jordan Hicks coming up.
Simba.
Yeah, he was.
Young Simba.
Jordan, real quick, talk about Jordan Hicks, because he was coming on strong. Yeah, before he got hurt in Dallas.
I don't feel too bad about it. And if you listen a little bit, you talk to different people. Hicks almost doesn't seem like a rookie. Everyone that comes across him says he's just a very mature player. He was a leader at Texas. So to be quite frank with you, I'm not worried one bit. I'd be more worried about, the linebackers that'll be around him. But the guy that's replacing D'Amico directly, I think he could do a great job, assuming he'll come back from his injury. So, Mufasa's time might be done, but I think Simba Simba's waiting in the wings. I had to use the analogy, man. It had to be done.
All right, now we'll move on to a different issue, and I'll say issue because this is such a strange thing that came up. But Evan Mathis, of course, guard on the now Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos. Who knows if he'll still be there? He was on a one-year deal. But the story came out this past week of him doing an email interview with a reporter, and he had some interesting things to say about Mr. Chip Kelly. A never-ending vanilla playbook. Couldn't work with big personalities. Denver would have eaten him alive. Jordan, where do you stand on this?
If there's any truth to that, which you kind of hear similar sentiments from different people, Kerry Williams, that we don't want to rehash history. So if it is true and, we keep hearing the same things, I guess it's good we moved on. I don't know that it's good that Doug Peterson's replacing him, but if all that's the case and, what he's doing wasn't working. And the players, they could only kind of hide that for so long, They didn't like the program he was running. No one liked playing for him. So
this is such a strange story, and from a strange guy like Mathis, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Fleet, what are your thoughts on Mathis freely airing his grievances about Chip Kelly?
Well, I mean, to some of his points that you mentioned, we saw with our own eyes. You know, Chip Kelly. Let's just call it what he is. He stunk as the Eagles coach, especially the last year. You know, we saw the lack of, you know, what seemed like game day preparation, how teams would adjust to what he would do, and he wouldn't counter adjust to that. And that's so key. Like, he came on and it was a big pop. It was nice the first year but he had dynamic playmakers, but then he got rid of them and he wasn't able to replace them, and it just went straight downhill. And he wasn't really able to recover from that deep hole he dug himself. So, you know, Evan Mathis, you know, a lot of other players have came out and spoke their grievances. At this point, you kind of just have to accept the fact that, yeah, he made some mistakes, and maybe he'll learn from it, but, you know, we'll see. I'm certainly not going to hope for it because of what he did to the Eagles.
You have to think a lot of that early success got to his head a little bit.
Everybody calling him a
genius. If enough people are calling you a genius, after a while, you'd be like, you know what, maybe I'm a genius. So, but we'll see.
Again, this is such a weird thing. And, of course, Evan Mathis literally sending Chip Kelly a video link of a song that was called Please Release Me, Let Me Go, to say that, yeah, I'd like to be released since you can't restructure my contract. What a weird
trolling.
What a weird situation. But
I mean, you get that kind of bravado when you win the Super Bowl, so.
Why not?
Yeah.
So, all right, well, thank you, Anthony, for joining us for Eagles Talk. We will be right back, and when we are, we will talk hockey for a brief moment because the NHL trade deadline is coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. We're getting ready to talk a little bit of Philadelphia Flyers because the trade deadline is coming up very soon. So, of course, got to bring on hockey expert Zach Granitsky. Hi, buddy.
Hello.
It's funny to see you full smile.
Okay.
I know you love hockey, but so of course the NHL trade deadline is coming up very soon. First, Zach, Ron Hextall came out and said that the Flyers not going to be big buyers at the trade deadline, even though they're kind of in the hunt for the playoffs right now. Flat out saying we're not going to add any big pieces. This is the right move, right?
Oh, definitely, because they have a good team right now, and it's a young team. It's just not a team that's good enough right now to get over the hump to make it to the playoffs. And honestly, as each day goes on, their chances at the playoffs continue to decrease. So what's the point in making a big move?
Yeah,
there is no point.
That's exactly right, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, Hextall's just doing more and more to win me over. And it doesn't sound like much, like, okay, he just said he's not going to trade for anyone. But we know the history of the Flyers. Like, they're known to, kind of give up on guys too easily. And next thing you know, oh, wait, he was a Flyer once. He's pretty good now. Yeah, young players, it's only smart to just give them some time to develop. They'll have their time. But right now, I think they just need to take it step by step.
Yeah, not only that, the Flyers way used to be that rebuild was not in the Flyers dictionary at all. Now, don't tell anyone, but they're kind of rebuilding. Like, it's kind of quiet. Like, they're still at least somewhat competitive, depending on who they play. But still, they're still putting things together right now, and you could see that. And that's why I think Hextall is the most like GM in Philadelphia right now. But let's talk about Mark Streit, because he's the guy who everybody seems to think will be traded. If anybody gets traded. 4 goals, 8 assists. Not really much, but Streit, I mean, we talked in the last segment for the Eagles about like Malcolm Jenkins and D'Amico Ryans. He's a leadership guy. So Zach, like if a team gets Mark Streit, how good will that be for them and for the Flyers to get a nice prospect?
Yeah, what you kind of just said is exactly what I was thinking. He's a leadership guy, and he's more of one of those defensemen that you're going to trade for so that you can get a veteran on your roster, not necessarily produce goals, because he is, he's kind of getting up there in age, so he's more of just a veteran aspect and presence to your team rather than producing goals or assists.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can only hope that, the half a season that they've had with him so far, like they've gotten some from him. But moving forward, I don't really think he has much of a place on this team. I don't think this is a team that's really built to win now, obviously. So I think he still has value. I think there's a lot he could bring to a team that's a little bit more competitive than maybe the Flyers are. But they'll miss his leadership. But, again, it's not time for that.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the Kimmo Timonen situation from last year. I mean, which it was amazing that Hextall pulled off that trade considering Timonen hadn't even played a game yet because of the blood clot scare he suffered. But sure enough, he gets traded and he wins the Stanley Cup. So hopefully something like that can come up if Mark Streit does get traded. But let's move on real quick to everybody's favorite Flyer, Shane Gostisbehere, because unfortunately his streak did end. But still, what a run for Shane Gostisbehere, shattering the record books. I believe it ended up around like 15 games, maybe 14, I forget the exact number, but longest streak by a rookie defenseman. Zach, obviously this is a huge deal, right? Because that kind of production from a rookie defenseman hasn't been seen much lately.
Yeah, and it was 15 games, by the way. But
I figured that.
Anyways, yeah, because right now, like you said, they seem to be rebuilding, which isn't what they usually do. And as of right now, getting Ghost on your team clearly was one of your best moves in the rebuilding process so far. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he gets a letter on his jersey within maybe 5 years.
I think that's reasonable. I think so.
Safe bet.
Yeah, not only that, but like we talked a couple weeks ago when we did the Phillies preview about J.P. Crawford being the centerpiece. Here's your future centerpiece, guys, because not only that, but you've got also young defensive prospects coming up. The Flyers have a bright future, so they don't need to make a big move at the trade deadline right now. So thank you, Zach, for coming on for Flyers Talk. It kind of flew by, pun intended.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. And when we come back, we will have Mr. Alec Kostoval on to talk Phillies, mainly Ryan Howard. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I think that a healthy body image means that, you are comfortable being the best you that you can be.
I think it's also part of the mental mind and how a person feels that they're perceived, because if they're confident, it's going to show in the way they act, how they dress.
If you're happy with how you look, you're comfortable, that means you're happy and you're healthy.
My ideal body image would be one where someone's healthy and happy.
If you or someone you know is struggling to maintain a healthy body image, visit the National Eating Disorder Association's website at www.nedawareness.org.
Welcome back to SportsTalk Philadelphia, our final segment of the day. So, of course, we're going to talk some Philadelphia Phillies baseball as more and more people report to Clearwater. So, reporting to our desk right there, Mr. Alec Kostoval. Alec, thank you for joining us again to talk Phillies.
It is always a pleasure, Tyler.
Thank you very much. So, as I mentioned before the break, we're talking about Ryan Howard because he finally gets to camp. He finally meets with the media, and he has some interesting things to say. One of which being that, no, he's actually hitting okay against lefties, but the media kind of spins the perception otherwise. So because of that, I made a little bit of a slideshow here comparing Ryan Howard and Darren Ruff's stats. So focus on the blue line because that's his numbers versus lefties. And look at the last two columns, as you can see, from 2014 to 2015, average nosedive against left-handed hitting. And now let's move on to the next slide, which is on-base percentage. Another dramatic drop from 2014 to 2015. Now, Let's compare that to one young Darren Ruff, who's still trying to find his way on this roster. Oh, look at that, a nice little shift in momentum, skyrocketing up from 2013 to 2015. And then on-base percentage, yeah, it's not ideal, but it's kind of getting there, like it's moving up. So, Alec, we'll start with you. Is this just the media spinning this, or is the proof in the pudding?
I mean, they're spinning it in the way that, he's terrible. He's not terrible. He still can hit for power. He can still hit righties. But can he hit lefties? No.
At least not right now.
No, not at all. It's bad. It's bad.
Jordan?
It's not a conversation anyone's comfortable having because, he's our guy. He's the NLCS MVP. He's Ryan Howard. He's not a terrible player by any means, but come on, he's not a full-time player at this point. And it's almost hard for any athlete, I feel like, to accept, their mortality. But I think he still has a role on this team, perhaps. It sucks that the relationship between him and the media, isn't what it used to be because he's not as good as he used to be, and that's okay. That's just father time catching up.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of weird things with that. I mean, of course, there's some off the field things, like the whole situation with his brother and how apparently he was stealing money from him or whatever the case may have been. Obviously, that's all there, but Jordan, we'll start with you. Because of that, do you think some of Howard's attitude towards the media is justified?
For sure. He's probably really defensive because anytime something like that comes out about you where, there's these issues between family, it's one thing you're beefing with the media, but when things come out like there's something going on between your family, that's not a good look. So I would imagine, he's probably defensive. You compound that with the fact that, again, he's not playing nearly as good as he once was, and then the fact that he's getting paid a ton. So he's kind of out of place. Jimmy Rollins is elsewhere. I think he signed a minor league deal.
How weird is that?
Sox. Utley's hanging on with the Dodgers. So he's just kind of the leftover guy, and I'm sure he feels out of place. So, he's probably got his guard up.
Alec?
Well, as I said, I think he has a right to feel a little disrespected by the media because I was telling you before we went on today, he was hitting around 272 in early June. He was actually doing very well, but the media didn't point that out. It was just, Ryan Howard's still here.
Yeah, it's a curious case. I mean, and Alec, you were on a couple weeks ago when we had the Phillies preview show, and Matt Breen brought it up. I don't know if there's ever really been a case like Ryan Howard, who was once so high up in Philly fan regard, but is now so low. Like he said on our show, we're kicking him out the door, it seems.
I mean, he wasn't wrong because we do want him gone, just like we wanted Ruben Amaro gone.
The first base coach of the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, you betcha.
Oh, boy. Jeez. Anyway, but yeah, so it is really a curious case of Ryan Howard. But another interesting thing, too, is earlier in the week, Pete McCannon brought up that, Cody Ashley, not only is he going to get reps at both left field and third base, no, he bought a first baseman, and he's going to get some reps at first base as well. Alec, how's this going to end up? I'm curious to see if this is to keep Cody Ashley on this roster.
That's not happening. No, you have platoon pieces with Ryan Howard and Darren Ruff. Darren Ruff can kill lefties. Ryan Howard can still hit righties. So you don't need to add anyone into this already complicated mix.
Jordan, your thoughts?
He hit it on the head. This whole situation has gotten weirder and weirder. I think a lot of it has to do with the losing. Maybe him, playing together with a lot of the young guys. Maybe if they're a little bit more competitive. Maybe this all goes away. But right now, it's just an interesting mix, and it's not like that contract is going to move itself. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, he's going to be a Philly until the regular season ends.
Yeah, I almost feel bad for the guy.
That's why
you want him here, but you don't want him here.
That's why this is such a strange case. Really, such a strange mix of emotions.
Reasons, yeah.
I'm just looking forward for spring training baseball to start, so that way we can actually compare and contrast guys rather than, this guy reported to camp. Oh, this guy reported to camp. But anyway, so that's it for Phillies talk. But it is time for the Fast Five, everyone's favorite segment on this show. 5 rapid-fire panel questions. So, Jordan, we're going to start with you. Again, we mentioned at the top of the show, it's your birthday today.
Yes, sir.
What's one of your favorite birthday gifts that you have ever gotten?
Ooh, that's tough. Probably the 96 Camry, which engine I blew out like a year or two later. But, you know, I rebounded. I just got a newer one. But, yeah, probably my first car, you know. A lot of scratches, but it was mine, you know. You remember getting your first car? Hands down that. Didn't get my license that day, and that's a story for another time. But I still got the car. Best birthday present.
There are so many sad caveats to this story. But anyway, moving on. Alec, Jordan mentioned it a little bit ago, but Jimmy Rollins signing a minor league deal with the Chicago White Sox. Real quick, how weird is that?
American League Jimmy Rollins, what is this?
Well, just no minor league deal, Jimmy Rollins. This guy's been a pillar of this
changed.
franchise for so long.
I know, it's so weird. I don't like it.
I hope he makes the team.
Oh, so do I.
Jordan, if you were an athlete in any sport, what number would you wear and why?
Ooh. I thought 0 was a pretty cool number. I mean, Gilbert Arenas had a short run, but it's just like, it's 0. It's like, it's whack if you're not good, but if you're good, it's like, you're just not an actual digit. You're just 0.
Russell Westbrook.
Is he a 0? He is a 0. He's another example. Cool number. 0.
And plus, there's your nickname, Agent 0.
Yeah, a lot of these numbers are reused too much. I like 23, but leave that to Jordan. Retire that number.
And LeBron. Anyway, Alec, same question.
27.
Why?
Because back when I started playing baseball for like CYO, started with 7, 8th grade year went to 17, freshman year of high school 27, and that's when we got to the state final.
Oh, nice. A little sentimental value. I'd probably wear number 13. It's weirdly enough my lucky number. Is that weird? It's pretty weird.
A little cliche.
Yeah. And anyway, Jordan, final question goes to you. It's your birthday, so of course some cake is probably in your future. Do you have a favorite kind of cake and why?
I'm a fan of the chocolate and/or mint variety.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I think the whole red velvet theme, it looks cool.
Overrated?
Yeah, you know, as long as it's just a quality cake, the flavor's not that important, you know. Nice yellow cake. The icing's really, I'm a big fan of the icing. The icing makes it.
All right.
And don't sleep on ice cream cake.
Hey, your birthday, you have whatever cake you
asked,
want,
man.
All right, so thank you guys very much for joining me. Thank you, Alec, and thank you, Jordan, and of course, again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And thank you all out there for watching. Be sure to stick with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, full episodes up on YouTube, and of course, online, lasalle.edu/LaSalleTV. So thank you guys very much for joining us, and we will see you next week.